Wonderful design, great kit, and personalities. What's more to want in your character? By the end of this video, you have everything you need to bring out the best of Burnice in an easy to absorb fashion. So sit back, relax, and let's kick things first off with game mechanics. Burnice mechanics explained super simply. Now, the number one most important thing that most people want to know is how do you keep up the uptime on the off-field burn damage that we can get for this particular unit. The key answer lies in under face portrait over here. You see this glowing bar, let's call it a heat bar. The TLDR is if it's glowing, you press your EX special attack, the enemy will get burned and you can switch on to your other characters to do your off-field burn damage as it goes on. If it's not glowing, if this bar is not glowing, you press your EX special, nothing is going to happen. There will be no enemies being burned for the off-field damage. So naturally, the next question would then become, how do we manipulate this bar? How do we increase it? How do we decrease it? What affects this bar? Let's start things first, of course, with what decreases it, because since it's full right now, and when you start off any battle, it's always you get 100 heat, so you always start the battle off with full. The first thing, of course, is when you burn this enemy, when you burn enemies, and you proc the burn. So you can see those red numbers that apply here after that. This is the after burn, the off-field burn damage. You can see them like burning up. So when you gradually hit them, and you can see the red numbers that happen over time, notice now my Burnice doesn't have a full energy gauge. So slowly over time, it decreases. As you hit them, it will decrease like by 8 over time. That's the first way. The second way is by holding her basic attack. So her normal basic attack will be something like this, where she hits like a mix of physical and fire. But you can do a hold, and she does this spinning action. You can hold it a bit longer to extend it, but you'll always consume about 20 heat. So hold 20 heat, hold 20 heat. And now, once you finished it, you can see over here, now I do not have any more heat to burn. So let me just demonstrate real quick. If I burn this guy, you can see that there's no afterburn because I do not have this thing glowing. The question is, how do you get it back? It's very, very easy. You just need to hold your EX special attack and you slowly charge it. You can see I sacrifice some energy for the sake of a bit of heat. So I burn, and then now I have maximum heat gauge at the cost of this energy as well. So it's pretty much like playing with two different energy bars. And whatever we mentioned to you is really this entire wall of text that you see over here, her core passive. You can read it up if you want for like more details. The important thing that I want to like point out right now is that there is a scaling for this afterburn damage, and it scales with the amount of anomaly proficiency she has. Importantly, you get up to 30% afterburn damage, so you need at least 300 anomaly proficiency when you're building your Burnice for her stats, so that you're able to get the maximum value out of her core passive as well. So that is this wall of text. I just like said the important stuff. Other than that, she also gets an additional ability that's super easy to proc. Anomaly character shares the same faction. Burnice basic attack, flame attack, EX special, or EX special intense heat stirring hits the enemy. Afterburn effect is triggered. That particular move accumulates faster, 65%. And the very, very juicy part is burn lasts 3 seconds longer on enemies, so you can really have the good uptime on the burning enemy state. Other than that, her kit is quite straightforward to understand. Once you have a 50% gauge in her bar, that's when you can start glowing, especially when it's not glowing. So you only need 50, you don't need the full 100. And at this point, I want to show you the ultimate ability, which is probably the most important part. I will go into here, you can see the skill section, and ultimate ability. One important thing that you need to know is there is a unique feature of her ult. When you ult with Burnice, you are able to have a quick assist to be triggered on the bottom right. So normally characters that ultimate, you will just like ult and like get off the field, switch to your next character or do your DPS string. For Burnice, when you ult, you can bring in another character, and you want to do it because Burnice will extend the duration of a flame spray when you do this quick assist. So make sure to keep an eye out for Burnice jumping in the air and then calling your other characters. It will help you extend the duration. Skill priorities for Burnice. The number one priority that I will focus on is getting your core skill up. This is where majority of the damage is going to come from the kit. Off-field damage, it helps you increase the amount of burn that is done by that off-field burn damage. 350%, very massive once you unlock the F node. I would focus on this one first. And in second place, we have a Tai. She does a lot of EX special attack to charge her gauges up. So you want to get EX special attack up as well. It's some sort of utility. Chain attack, also decent. Whenever you stun the enemy, she comes in, does a bit more damage. She will be appearing more often than not in those chain attack situations. So tight between special attack, chain attack. And in third place, we have another tie. It's probably between assist as well as basic attack. She does do both of these from time to time, and the lowest priority is probably dodge attack, because you probably won't be playing her on field to dodge too much unless necessary. Best drive this for Burnice. Now, Burnice is super simple for the sets that you want to go for. My recommendation is a 4-piece Chaos Jazz with a 2-piece Freedom Blues. She wants to hit that 300 anomaly proficiency stat threshold so that you can get a lot more afterburn damage. So this 30 in the 2-piece from the Freedom Blues as well as the 30 in the Chaos Jazz will help you get there very, very nicely. You already get like 60 just from set bonuses alone. So other than this, what else? Why am I going with this? 4-piece Chaos Jazz gives you a lot of utility. Burnice is fire, so you gain benefit from this fire damage 15%. At the same time, she's an off-field damage dealer. And for those of you who are wondering which part of this benefits her, is the assist attack damage. Burnice Afterburn, which is the one that procs off-field, is considered as assist attack damage, and that increases by 20%. So this buff continues for like 5 seconds. Continuation effect can trigger once every 7.5 seconds, which means that it's just not 100% permanent uptime when she's on field. So you want to stay with her on field for at least 5 seconds and then quickly like swap off field so that she can get a maximum amount of buffs as well. And the rotation should be minimum 7.5 seconds. That's like what this text means. Other than that, what is the main stats that I'm going for? So let's start off with the easier one first, right? 4. In terms of number 4, anomaly proficiency definitely is top pick. Without like a doubt, you want to hit that 300 threshold for anomaly proficiency. For number 5, I think that the choice that I will make is probably fire damage bonus. But if you're really a new player into the game, don't feel bad if you can't find like an on-set with attack percentage, pen ratio. These two are good as you're transiting over to a more preferred ones. These are also fine. So don't stress yourself out too much following like ideal guides and stuff. Those are decent too. The one that is trickiest is Partition 6. Now, Partition 6, there's 2 ways that you can go about doing it. The first is Energy Regen. The second is Anomaly Mastery. Now, Anomaly characters already build up very quickly, especially if you have M1, it helps her build up very, very fast as well in terms of the Anomaly gauge. Why Energy Regen might be interesting is, in order to build that heat gauge quicker, you need a lot of energy. And if you're not running any energy sets and you're fighting AoE monsters, you likely will not have enough heat gauge to keep up that off-field heat time unless you're really strategic in which enemy you burn and which enemy you do not burn. My recommendation for most people is probably a mix. You can go either Anomaly Mastery or Energy Regen, especially if you find yourself running out of energy very often, no heat gauge. Energy Regen might be your problem solver to help you keep up the 100% uptime on her as well. And in this quick section, I want to talk about an unorthodox alternative build. For those of you who are looking to carry Swing Jazz, you want a carrier for Swing Jazz, and you don't have like any other character, maybe they are all more DPS-y. You can also run Swing Jazz 4-piece on Burnice. It gives her decent energy regen. In that case, you can switch to Anomaly Mastery Partition 6, and it gives you a nice team-wide 15% bonus for 12 seconds. So this is great, especially if you want to have the uptime on the damage. You like the Swing Jazz buff, I think it's fine as well. It might not be as optimal for Burnice damage, but it's better for team-wide utility, so I'll leave the choice up to you. In this case, I'll run a 4-piece Swing Jazz together with a 2-piece Chaos Jazz or 2-piece Freedom Blues, but ultimately, if you want the maximum value out of your Burnice, you want to go to Chaos Jazz. It just gives you a lot more damage. We're going to be talking specifically about W engines for Burnice, which ones are great for her, and is this Flame Maker Shaker, her signature W engine, actually worth it, or are there better alternatives and you can save yourself $200? But let's first things first, jump in with her signature W engine. Long story short, it's best in slot for her. Over here, base attack of 713 is massively high, and it gives you advanced stat of 30% attack as well. These are a lot of stats for you to build your Burnice because she scales with attack percentage in terms of off-field damage, on-field damage, whatever not damage. Attack is really nice on this particular character. Yet, when she's off-field, you get more energy, which means you get more of your heat gauge uptime. You can charge your heat gauge faster. So this is wonderful because Burnice does want a little bit of energy too. When hitting an enemy with EX special attack or assist attack. Now this is the main key. Assist attack is her afterburn. When she's off the field, the afterburn instances on the field, that's considered as an assist attack. This helps you proc the effect, stacking 3.5% up to 10 times, so it's like 35% damage buff, which is massive. Lasts for 6 seconds, and it just keeps resetting every time you proc the instance. One thing to note is when you're off field, you charge faster. No, you don't get like double the effect, it's just like charging faster. And once you have certain number of stacks greater than 5, you also get anomaly proficiency. So as you can see, massive stat stick that works very well with Burnice kit. You give her energy, which means that you can even switch your drive this over to attack percentage, anomaly proficiency if you wanted to. And because you get a lot of anomaly proficiency here as well, you can even consider like running just attack or something like that, and a lot of damage increase. So this is very, very useful for Burnice, not only as a stat balancer, but also to turn her into a solid damage dealer because of the massive stat it has. I really like it a lot, but unfortunately, not all of us have like $200 to spare, right? For those of you who are not planning to get W engines for Burnice, not to worry, you have tons of other options. A long story short, TLDR summary is all of them are very, very decent alternatives as well, but there are some which I would call like tier 1 alternatives. My favorites will be Weeping Gemini, Electro Lip Gloss, as well as Fusion Compiler. I will explain in a bit from the testing that we have done. In tier 2, I like Rainforest Gourmet as well, and my least out of all of them will probably be Roaring Ride along with the other B Anomaly W engines. Let's talk first about the free-to-play ones, because this is something that everyone has access to and I like it really much. Weeping Gemini, I really like it a lot. And why is that the case other than that it's free and you can get it all the way maxed out at like the 5 different copies of this? What is great about this is other than the 594 base attack which rivals Rainforest Gourmet, you get a nice 25% attack stat which helps her with her afterburn, her on-field EX special attack that she spams that flamethrower. It benefits it a lot. And at the same time, when you have a squad member that procs Attribute Anomaly, you will gain a buff of 48 at W Engine 5 that stacks up to 4 times. This is a 192 buff. Just to put in perspective, Rainforest Gourmet advanced stat is 75. This buff in the after effect here is almost 3 times as much. 192 at W Engine 5. Even at W Engine 1, you only have 1 copy, it's also already 120. All you need to do is proc Attribute Anomaly on the enemy. Very easy to do. One thing to note, of course, we've tested it. This doesn't count. Disorder doesn't count to this effect. So you have to proc like Burn, then you have to proc Shock, and when you proc Burn on Shock, that disorder doesn't count, so you only get 2 stacks. Then you proc Assault again, you proc Burn again on top of that, then you get the max stacks. The effect, of course, disappears when the enemy is stunned or is defeated, but if you're fighting solo 1v1 like bosses kind of thing, this buff has a huge amount of uptime, and 192 is really, really crazy massive. Great for multiple anomaly teams. Now, where this pales into comparison is if you're only running mono burn teams, then it will take very long to get the effect. In that case, the other free-to-play one, if you're running like mono fire with Soldier 11, Lucy in the team composition, in that case, this will offer you a lot more consistency. Rainforest Gourmet. Why I label it tier 2 is because the other tier 1s are a little bit better, but let's start things off with like talking about the free-to-play ones and then we go along, since not everyone is a massive lucky getting the S ranks and a battle pass buyer, right? So why this one is tier 2 and slightly lower is because even though you get a nice consistency in mono fire teams of anomaly proficiency of 75, your attack buff is the one that loses a lot of consistency. Whereas Weeping Gemini gives you flat, like straightforward attack buff throughout the time, regardless of whether you're off-field, on-field, and stuff like that. This one, when you're off-field, 10 seconds later, it's gone. Your buff still stays off-field for those of you who are wondering, but Burnice hardly wants to like spam all her energy. You will have a lot of downtime, and you will unlikely use up the entire 100 energy to get the maximum 40%. So the uptime is very, very low. That is one of the downsides, which means that most of her damage will be focused on getting those final burn procs off, which is not a lot in comparison to like a attack percentage substats. So that's why I like Weeping Gemini a lot more. The only thing is if you're running like maybe mono fire, you could see a case for Rainforest Gourmet a bit more, or perhaps you already have it leveled up, you can just use it. But Weeping Gemini definitely I think is a lot more attractive. The 2 other alternatives in tier 1, let's talk about the A rank first. This is a bit more expensive. You need to pay $10. It's a battle pass one, but I'll touch on why it's very good for those of you who are wondering. Not only, let's just see at W Engine 1, not only does it give you the same stats as Rainforest Gourmet in the base attack and anomaly proficiency, the W Engine effect this time is a lot easier to proc, especially if you're running mono fire team. This is the alternative I would recommend over Weeping Gemini, the other free-to-play one that we talked about. This is the alternative that I think is better in mono fire teams, because when you proc burn on the enemy, which Burnice extends the duration of burn, she gives like 3 seconds longer burn, so you have even more uptime on this. All you just need to do is have like a burning enemy or some sort of like assault lingering effect on field, you get attack increase 10%. and you deal 15% more damage to the target. This works off-field as well, so it doesn't matter whether you do on-field, off-field, the afterburn will get proc this damage as long as they have some sort of attribute anomaly on them. Very fantastic. Unfortunately, it's 10 bucks. I know not every of you have the luxury of spending money in this game, so I'll just keep it at that. The other tier 1 alternative is Fusion Compiler. The reason why this is also in the tier 1 list and it's not like blazing hot at like the top pick is it is an S rank after all. Not every one of us has the luck to get a signature S rank W engine, but it does have very high base attack. It gives you 684 base attack, which both her afterburn, both her procs of like her EX special attack, everything scales off with this massive base attack, so she doesn't mind. Pen ratio also benefits her very, very tremendously as well, since it benefits almost types of damage. You get a nice attack increase of 12%, so massive stats. Her threshold to like get her buffs is basically at 300 anomaly proficiency, which is very easy to achieve. You don't have to force in an advanced stat of anomaly proficiency to hit that 300 anomaly proficiency threshold that we talked about earlier on. But other than that, use your EX special attack here, you gain a anomaly proficiency buff that stacks up to like 3 times, so you get that 75 here, although there is a downtime because it's at 8 seconds. But the massive amount of attack that you get from this gear allows you to just simply run a lot more anomaly proficiency in your other gear to help you balance out the stats. So this is a massive stat balancer, Fusion Compiler. We talked about the 4 already in like tier 1, tier 2. The last few that tier 3, the B firstly is not really that great. You lose a lot of attack. The additional effects here are much inferior to even the free-to-play ones. But the one that everyone has on their mind is Roaring Right. It seems very good at first. Like this seems like it's going to be super good because Burnice procs a lot of EX special attack, quote-unquote, off-field. That is false. Do not get that misconception. We tested it out. The only thing good about this is decently higher base attack versus the free-to-play ones. Free-to-play ones is like 590, this is like 264, but it doesn't work off-field. This whole wall of text, when we have tested it, doesn't work off-field because her afterburn effects, the burn that procs off-field, is considered as like an assist attack sort of thing, and it doesn't proc this effect. So for those of you who are wondering, basically when your EX special attack hits an enemy, you get one of the following buffs. You can have all 3 if you stay on field and burn for a very, very long period of time. That way you can get like all 3 of the stacks. Unfortunately, off-field, this buff goes away in 5 seconds. So you switch off, the buff is all gone, and her afterburn doesn't proc any of them. So it kind of like is meh. Until they change this is going to be the lowest priority out of all of them. All it is really just a base attack and slight attack percentage. Substats not as great as like even Whipping Gemini, who offers you a lot more value in like the additional effects that you get. So that is my thoughts on all of the W engines for Burnice. To sum up, long story short, free-to-play gear, Whipping Gemini probably number 1. Great in multiple anomaly teams. Fusion Compiler and Electro Lip Gloss also make up the other top picks if you're not thinking about her signature light cone. Of course, her signature W engine will be like ranked top. Second place, Rainforest Gourmet. Roaring Right is like 3rd place together. The other Bs not as great as an alternative. So first things first, what is Burnice, in my opinion, her best team in a sense, like most popular team, will probably be a hybrid between Jane Doe as well as Burnice. Why does these two work very well is Burnice offers a lot of anomaly off-field damage. She applies a burn and then she swaps off and you can still build the gauges as she's working off-field. This way you can make way for a very nice on-field anomaly-based DPS. So Jane Doe on-field trying to proc the anomaly. Once she pops the anomaly, assault, and then Burnice will eventually get her burn up, and then you will have that very juicy disorder damage. So that is why a lot of people like this. And moving forward, not just Jane Doe is the only one that can be played here. Any character in future can be played in this slot in the place of Jane Doe, especially if like maybe let's say Yanagi is on-field DPS, anomaly DPS. In that case, she will like she'll very nicely like take the place in the synergy slot in case you don't have Jane Doe. In the last slot here, what I would actually recommend is going for a character like Caesar. Caesar is really strong. Not only do you get a lot of protection for the rest of your team in case that you get hit or something, you give a lot of damage buffing, you give a lot of attack buffing to the rest of your team. She is a very fantastic, well-rounded unit to give you like a little bit of stun, a little bit of defense, a little bit of everything. Then some of you might be wondering, EOD, I don't have all these freaking limited characters, right? You have like 3 different limited characters. So in that case, I recommend you go with one that's slightly cheaper, which will probably be Seth, and you can run with like the top team Jane Doe together with Burnice, together with Seth. This is gonna like fulfill a lot of the needs that you have in this very popular team that a lot of people likely will be playing. Then some of you might be wondering, let's take it a step further. You don't have Piper. or you don't have Jane Doe, the other option that you have, where's my Piper? There we go. So the other option that we have is actually Piper. This is going to be a really fantastic alternative. Between Jane Doe and Piper, I actually like Jane Doe a lot more. She just feels more fluid on field. But then it's like 200 bucks, right? A limited character. Not all of us will have that kind of money. If you're looking for some fun, you can just trial Piper instead if you have her on your account. Play with Piper and like Burnice, you will find it decent. But Jane Doe, of course, works a lot better. The combat feels a lot smoother in terms of the rotations too. So that is the most popular team. Now the second team that is a little bit unorthodox or a little bit different from what we are used to right now is triple anomaly teams. The idea of triple anomaly is the same thing. You have one over here, as we talked about, like the Piper slash Jane Doe versus and like Burnice, for example. So you have one fire, you have one physical set. The last one is actually proccing another element, which is Grace. So in this case, we are swapping Grace instead of a stunning shielding character, for example like Caesar, for example like Seth here. Why does this work very well? I have a very simple analogy for you guys. Imagine the objective of anomaly basically is to proc disorder and the anomaly attribute, that whatever it is, be it burn, be it assault, be it shock, or whatever it is. Take for example, these are three different Hoyoverse games. You have Genshin Impact, you have Zenless Zone Zero, and Honkai Star Rail. So before that, when you're only playing two different games, you only have like a new banner 1 week, and then you will have like a gap, and then Honkai Star Rail has its new banner, and then Genshin Impact has its new banner. But if you put in three different games, now you're playing three different gacha games. Every single week, you are having a new banner, and you have a lot of like interest, engagement going on. Similarly, that energy is applied to anomaly-based teams, and it helps you increase the number of disorder you do. So when you proc that fire on the enemy, Jane Doe hits them, you build that assault, and while you're proccing that assault charges, you're actually getting energy regen back on your Grace. So everyone is like working on each other's cooldowns, and as you build up the assault stacks while Jane Doe is on field, Grace is gradually getting her EX special attack back. Burnice is still working off field because her burn builds up if you hit the enemies over time, and that's what Jane Doe is like really, really good for. Hit on field, you build the charges, you proc disorder, you proc assault, you proc burn, disorder, Grace comes onto field, she procs disorder as well, you swap in back into Burnice, you build the fire charges, go back and you finish up the clean rotation, and you are very, very, very busy. I personally like this triple anomaly team the best out of all of the teams that I played, and I played a lot already in the trial so far as well as in testing. I really like this team the most. I think this is a very fantastic team. What makes this work is a two off-field supportive anomaly characters, whereas you have one relatively on-field character who makes use of the entire team's time. If you have triple off-field, doesn't really feel that great, but one on-field, two off-field, very, very fantastic. I find that I do a lot more damage than if I was to swap in like Caesar or Seth in between. It's very, very fun, but one huge caveat, massive caveat, this is a difficult team to play. The first team that I talked about, this popular team, is a lot easier to manage. This team is actually very tricky because you have to think about many people's cooldowns. So as you are playing Grace, you need to know her combos, you need to do that basic, and then throw the EX special so you can the max gauge. At the same time, you need to like proc the burn properly, you need to be in Jane's phase state. So all of these things happen all at once, and if you're a person that's not really liking a quick swap nature, thinking of too much complexity while also maintaining the gauges, triple anomaly will take some skill to get used to and get involved into, but it's very, very fun. I like it the most out of all of them. I personally think Burnice works really fine at M0, but for those of you who want to double down on this character, let me share with you my thoughts from M1 all the way to M6. Out of all of them, the best in my opinion is probably 1 and 2, the rest are much less efficient. So let's get into M1 first. What M1 does is it increases your max heat, the gauge that's under Burnice bar, for 100 to 140, and it also lets you start off with a full gauge still, because normally you only start off with like 100 energy. So why this is good? Extending the hit bar makes her more stay off field a little bit longer. Her rotations become longer since you need to swap into her lesser to slowly build up the gauge and having her on field. So that is nice, especially for characters who want like a little bit more on field time, maybe like Jane Doe or some future characters that they release. And at the same time, you get damage increase from the afterburn, so she becomes a better off-field damage dealer. It scales with 100% of Burnice attack, which she probably already builds a lot into as well. At the same time, you help that fire anomaly build up while she's off-field. This afterburn is the off-field burn is increased by 25%. So you speed up the rate of the fire anomaly procs, you increase the damage of those fire anomaly damage instances, and at the same time, you help her stay off-field a bit longer. I think M1 is pretty solid for utility as well. M2 is the team-wide support one. This is juicy as well. You get a 20% pen ratio for your when the target is hit It stacks, of course, like up to 5 times, lasting 6 seconds, but it resets, and after burn, as long as you keep hitting the enemy, you basically will have max stacks most of the time. 20% rest pen to any of the enemies who have like been like after burn 5 times. That is very, very massive. It helps you turn her into like a bit of a supportive character. I think it's very, very strong. M3 and 5, I won't talk too much. They're just like additional stat multipliers. But M4 here, I think it's not super critical. It's just on the way to M6. You do get an increased crit rate when you use your EX special or assist attack. Generally, anomaly characters won't build too much for crit damage, so you're only using this as like to increase the stat multiplier so that you have a higher chance of like critting your base like instances, which is okay, not too bad. Max flame duration of EX special attack increases by 1 second is not bad, but not very, very significant as well. As you can see, the most important part really is you want to get for this juicy M6. This wall of text is just a special afterburn. It does a lot of damage, 1.8k% of the original damage. So massive 18 times multiplier of original damage. Crazy amounts of damage, right? At the same time, it's like you already have the increase from M1 for the Burnice attack scaling. So this is super strong. Unfortunately, it only scales once every 20 seconds for each target. So it's not as if this is every single afterburn. It's now like 18 times stronger. That'll be like quite OP. It's not the case, but it does like ignore a bit of the target's fire rest. This is if you want to turn Burnice into like a really monster off-field damage. But for most of us, I don't think it's super critical. In fact, my recommendation, M0 is like more or less good enough, but M1 offers good utility, M2 offers good team-wide support, and probably the cap off will be like M1 in my opinion as well. Is Burnice free-to-play friendly? Now, if you're talking about level of investment kind of requirement, she is a very fine character at M0 without her signature. There are many accessible free-to-play W engines, as we talked about in the W engine section. At the same time, her drive, this is also not too complex. You just look for certain main sets, get the sets. You don't have to farm for their massive crit rate, crit damage multipliers in anomaly characters generally. So very fine in terms of requirements and accessibility for free-to-play players. At the same time, she offers a lot of off-field damage that she procs, and her teams that she plays into are decently broad as well, as we talked about in the team sections. And if you want more, you can find out more on our specialist team composition guide videos. All in all, I think she's free-to-play friendly. The only thing that's keeping her a little bit behind right now in the game state is probably that we need more A-rank anomaly characters. Right now in the game, all we have is Piper, and if you want to play like a team of full anomaly and stuff like that, you likely need multiple S ranks, and this early in the game, probably quite expensive to have more than one anomaly based character. But that's just my thoughts on free-to-play friendliness. If you found this video helpful, do like and subscribe for more such future content, and check out these 2 other videos which you might be interested if you like Burnice as a character, you like this video. Thank you guys again so much for your attention, and see you in the next video.